South Africa has been re-elected into the International Maritime Organisation Council. The election took place at the Council's 34th sitting in London. South Africa joined the Council in 1999, but was not brought back until in 2021. The country's position in the Council will provide a voice for the SADC region within the maritime platform. For a broad discussion on this, I'm joined by the Deputy Minister of Transport, Mkhuleko Hlengwa. DM, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this afternoon. So the IMO was established back in 1948, but it became more of a force rather in 1958 under the United Nations. Perhaps just explain to us its functions and its objectives, and what does it mean for South Africa to return to the IMO, particularly with the country's geopolitical influence in Africa and globally, especially given our strategic maritime position?
No, thank you very much, Katlego. Good afternoon to you and the viewers. Well, 80% of global trade actually takes place in the waters through the shipping industry, and so it is elementary that it is the backbone of international trade, and South Africa is strategically positioned at the Cape of Good Hope as one of the major corridors of global trade. With the challenges that we have witnessed in the Middle East over the past few years, there has been a rerouting of traffic onto South African waters, which span quite a vast distance, almost all the way down to the Antarctica, and with our search and rescue capabilities being the backbone of both the east and west of the SADC region. Now, with that challenge in the Middle East of traffic being rerouted to us, we've experienced increase of about 86% of vessels on our waters. And so we've got a heightened burden of responsibility and obligation. Now, consistent, of course, then with the IMO's own strategic priorities, which ensure safety, security, policy making and decision making for the international maritime community, it is important that the major players actually are at the table. So it is a very strategic and important body. Currently, right now, it is dealing with a proposal for zero emissions by the year 2050 in the maritime space, and that has got a particular implication, of course, for us as well in our own strategic objectives, safety and security. So we were, as you rightly said, as a country, we were voted out of the IMO Council, which is a body of 40 countries across three categories. Category A has got 10, Category B has got 10, and Category C has got 20. South Africa was a member of the Council from 1999 until being voted out in 2021, and we chaired the Council from 2005 to 2015. So what we have been engaged with over the past year and a half, having assumed office, was that this is one area we recognized as being very important for South Africa and for SADC. And of course, it also comes on the back of South Africa retaining its council seat at the ICAO, which is on aviation. Minister Creasy was in Canada in September. So what we have been hard at pains to do and hard at work to do is to ensure that we reposition South Africa on the international stage when it comes to transportation, to ensure that we've got a stake in the policy-making decisions that are taken by the international bodies, because we are directly affected. Lastly is we were the only candidate of the SADC region, and so we then carry, of course, with SADC endorsement and their support, the aspirations of the SADC region, but also in the meetings that we have been convening here in London and meeting with the Africa Group, there has been a recognition to reinforce Africa's own participation. And so South Africa has been elected alongside countries such as Liberia, Nigeria, and amongst others. Morocco was also elected, and Egypt. And so of course, we regret that in this round of elections, Kenya was actually voted out because they were a member of council for the past 2 years. So we believe that this strengthens our own aspirations, it strengthens our own outlook, but also our influence in ensuring that as a maritime nation, as we are, South Africa, and with all the reforms we are doing in the country to strengthen road to rail and to beef up our 8 ports, we are at a strategic, therefore, position to advance the South African agenda, pulling forward to the SADC and continental aspirations.
And particularly on that, DM, with regards to that broadened agenda on the continent, you mentioned our strategic positioning along the Cape Sea route, and that being a vital gateway for global trade. How does then the country plan to leverage this geographical advantage, not just for our own regional development, but rather to position ourselves as a leading maritime hub in Africa and beyond?
Well, first and foremost is really to ensure that we leverage this for the purposes of employment for our people and job creation. So when we were in the council meeting in July, amongst others, what we did was sign a mutual recognition of competencies with Sweden to make sure that South African seafarers are actually able to gain employment well outside of South Africa. And so we want to make sure that there is a heightened prioritization by Council in ensuring that seafarers from South Africa and around the world generally can be able to access opportunities. What we've recognized is that if we can't create the jobs at home, or if we fill up the jobs at home, we must still be able to find opportunities for South Africans elsewhere. Just this week, I had engagements with Finland as well to consider that kind of arrangement and for them to assess what we are doing. We are working with universities in South Africa, and therefore we are going to be able to pitch at a higher level our strategic deployment of our skills and expertise, but also at the same time borrow from international practice. So one of the key pillars we campaigned upon as a country was ensuring that women and youth are actually prioritized. We are working with the International Women in Maritime component of the IMO to ensure that spaces open up there as well. Secondly, of course, is that if you have heightened volumes of traffic in your waters, you can therefore leverage along the lines of bunkering. You can ensure that you are able to access goods and services much quicker for people to dock in our waters, offload and unload, and continue on their onward journeys. It is also, of course, then about ensuring that we take on more skills around safety and security. South Africa is also currently chairing what is known as the Djibouti Code of Conduct, which is dealing with the anti-piracy and terrorism and security breaches on the east coast of Africa. We were in Mauritius just under a month ago, where the Djibouti Code of Conduct was having its own meetings with the countries which are signatories to it as we try and put collective efforts, and we were re-elected onto that body. So what we are doing, amongst others, as the department, is to strengthen South Africa's global positioning as a maritime nation, because we understand that it comes with opportunities. And we want to use and leverage those opportunities for the South African economy to create jobs and to ensure that we are part of the policy making. Because what's important is the rules of engagement that the council will take have got a direct impact on us, because we are a heavy user of the maritime space, and also given that we have the increase of the traffic. So what we're trying to do is position South Africa as an alternative, so that whenever there's challenges within the world's ecosystem, our waters can still be used, and then we pull in the benefits that come with that.
Lastly, DM, before I let you go, I mean, we heard from the Vice Admiral Lobese a few weeks ago speaking about the decline in funding, particularly when it comes to maritime defense. And you are touching on just some of the challenges, and considering these challenges that are faced by the South African Navy and the maritime security. Are there heightened engagements between yourselves as the Department of Transport with the Department of Defense? And how does then the country plan to ensure that this re-engagement with the IMO also translates into improved maritime safety and security?
Well, we're going to have to first and foremost, have a pooling and sharing of resources within the SADC group, so that we can be able to assist one another. If you look at the continental aspirations that countries have about their own maritime outlook, it's important that we meet. Secondly, yes, we will obviously have to engage with the South African National Defence Force because in its entirety, because they've got a role to play in part of the work that we do and vice versa. But it's also an interdepartmental outlook because environment, forestry and fisheries, amongst others, science and technology, amongst others, are key. And of course, border management under Home Affairs, because the issues are interlinked. So we believe that with this election, which we are very humbled by as a department, as a country, it does force South Africa to reinforce its own capabilities so that we can do justice to this election. And we are looking forward, obviously, to what this new week will now bring as we go to the first council meeting on the 4th of November to then understand the priorities that will be laid out and therefore the commitments that South Africa will have to undertake as a council member for the next 2 years.
All right, DM, we certainly do applaud you as a department for ensuring that South Africa goes back into participating in these very important councils. Thank you also for your time. That is the Deputy Minister of Transport, Mkhuleko Hlengwa.